Sorry for the late start by a couple minutes today, but excited to read another story with you. It's going to be another good one. I'll jump right in. The story I have picked out for today is The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. And this is by Beatrix Potter. Let's get started. One morning, a little rabbit sat on a bank. He pricked his ears and listened to the trit-trot of a pony. A gig was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet. And I'm going to zoom in nice and close for these pictures today, because they're just on one side of the book. As soon as they had passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down into the road and set off with a hop, skip, and a jump to call upon his relations, who lived in the wood at the back of Mr. McGregor's garden. He's excited to be going to see his family. That wood was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffetees. I once bought a pair at a bazaar. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea, a rabbit tobacco, which is what we call lavender. So she keeps very busy, doesn't she? All her little bunnies watching her work. So cute. Little Benjamin did not very much want to see his aunt. He came round the back of the fir tree, and nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin Peter. So he didn't see him there. He almost fell on top of him. You can see his ears poking up. Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly and was dressed in a red cotton pocket handkerchief. I wonder why he's so down. Maybe it'll tell us. Peter, said little Benjamin in a whisper, "Who has got your clothes?" Peter replied, "The scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden," and described how he had been chased about the garden, and he had dropped his shoes and coat. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor had gone out in a gig, and Miss McGregor also, and certainly for the day, because she was wearing her best bonnet. Oh gosh, what are they gonna do to get his clothes back? Let's see. Peter said he hoped that it would rain. At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard inside the rabbit hole, calling, "Cottontail, Cottontail, fetch some more chamomile." Peter said he thought he might feel better if he went for a walk. Going for a walk definitely sometimes helps me to feel better. So I think that was a good idea. They went away, hand in hand, and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood. From here they looked down into Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the scarecrow, topped with an old tam-o'-shanter of Mr. McGregor's. I feel like Mr. McGregor is just teasing them by having his clothes hanging there. Little Benjamin said, "It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. The proper way to get in is to climb down a pear tree." Peter fell down head first, but it was of no consequence, as the bed below was neatly raked and quite soft. That's good. It had been sown with lettuce. Otherwise, that might have hurt poor little Peter Rabbit. They left a great many odd little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs. I love how these little bunnies all wear little outfits. Makes them look so cute. Little Benjamin said that the first thing to be done was to get back Peter's clothes, in order that they might be able to use the pocket handkerchief. They took them off the scarecrow. There had been rain during the night. There was water in the shoes, and the coat was somewhat shrunk. Benjamin tried on the tam-o'-shanter, but it was too big for him. Now, who's ever heard of a tam-o'-shanter? I have never heard of that kind of hat. It's very silly looking on that bunny. Then he suggested that they should fill the pocket handkerchief with onions as a little present for his aunt. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. He's probably scared Mr. McGregor might come back. Benjamin, on the contrary, was perfectly at home and ate a lettuce leaf. He said that he was in the habit of coming to the garden with his father to get lettuces for their Sunday dinner. The name of little Benjamin's papa was old Mr. Benjamin Bunny. The lettuces certainly were very fine. So Benjamin's not so nervous. He does this all the time with his daddy. Peter did not eat anything. He said he should like to go home. Presently, he dropped half the onions. Uh-oh. They're falling out of the handkerchief. Oh, Peter. Little Benjamin said that it was not possible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables. He led the way boldly towards the other end of the garden. They went along a little walk on planks under a sunny red brick wall. The mice sat on their doorsteps, cracking cherry stones. They winked at Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny. Presently, Peter let the pocket handkerchief go again. He is having a hard time holding on to those onions. They got amongst flower pots and frames and tubes. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. What did he hear? This is what those little rabbits saw round that corner. Little Benjamin took one look, and then, in half a minute, less than no time, he hid himself and Peter and the onions underneath a large basket. Look what they are hiding from. Mr. McGregor's cat. Yeah, I don't think rabbits would like having a cat around very much. The cat got up and stretched himself and came and sniffed at the basket. Perhaps she liked the smell of onions. Anyway, she sat down upon the top of the basket. Uh-oh. She sat there for 5 hours. I cannot draw you a picture of what Peter and Benjamin underneath the basket, because it was quite dark, and because the smell of onions was fearful. It made Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin cry. The sun got round behind the wood, and it was quite late in the afternoon, but still the cat sat upon the basket. At length there was a pitter-patter, and some bits of mortar fell from the wall above. The cat looked up and saw old Mr. Benjamin Bunny prancing along the top of the wall of the upper terrace. He was smoking a pipe of rabbit tobacco and had a little switch in his hand. He was looking for his son. Yay, they have some help. Old Mr. Bunny had no opinion of whatever of cats. He took a tremendous jump off the top of the wall onto the top of the cat and cuffed it off the basket and kicked it into the greenhouse, scratching off a handful of fur. The cat was too much surprised to scratch back. When old Mr. Bunny had driven the cat into the greenhouse, he locked the door. Then he came back to the basket and took out his son Benjamin by the ears and whipped him with the little switch. Then he took out his nephew Peter. He's probably not so happy that they snuck into that garden by themselves. Then he took out the handkerchief of onions and marched out of the garden. When Mr. McGregor returned about half an hour later, he observed several things which perplexed him. It looked as though some person had been walking all over the garden in a pair of clogs. Only the footmarks were too ridiculously little. Also, he could not understand how the cat could have managed to shut herself up inside the greenhouse, locking the door upon the outside. That would look rather odd to come home to. When Peter got home, his mother forgave him because she was so glad to see that he had found his shoes and coat. Cottontail and Peter folded up the pocket handkerchief, and Mrs. Rabbit strung up the onions and hung them from the kitchen ceiling with the bunches of herbs and the rabbit tobacco. The end. Look at their cozy little rabbit hole. I absolutely love it. Well, this is definitely one of my favorite books, one I have been reading for a very long time. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you to those friends who joined me today in watching and listening to our lovely story. And I cannot wait to share the next one with you. So have a great night. Bye.